Welcome to the first ever Grassroots with Jayda, hosted by me, Jayda. Grassroots will explore all things going on the ground. Grassroots is mass media to end mass incarceration. We are international and intersectional, made by formerly incarcerated people, for formerly incarcerated people, and beyond. We are YouTube for you. Pretty much we're badass, and we'll be interviewing movement makers and talking real talk. So this ain't your late night white man's talk show. Don't set your sleep timer, set your woke timer. And let's get on with the premiere of Grassroots with Jayda. Y'all see Fergie sing the national anthem at the NBA All-Stars game? Can we stop talking about how she sung it and instead focus on the fact that she sung it? Stacey has been profiting off of black culture, Miley style, ever since the Black Eyed Peas. Then when black culture says, protest the national anthem to bring attention to police brutality, she decides to belt it out the way she did. Try something new. How about not singing it? That's new. I mean, the signs have been there for a long time that Fergie wasn't a true ally. Kids Incorporated? Girl has been into capitalism culture since she was a kid. Not Fergalicious Fergie. Those are my hunts, not yours. Of course, we have to mention the tragic shooting that occurred at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. We offer our deepest sympathies and our loudest fuck the NRAs, but let's also mention Janaea Khan's on-point editorial in The Root that calls out mainstream society for supporting the Parkland youth while disregarding black youth using the same tactics in the movement for Black lives. If you have to be white presenting and talk about a tragedy that affected mainly white people to be taken seriously, then we call BS. Lastly, ALAS, the Association for Los Angeles Deputy Sheriffs, just sent out an email a few days ago saying that BLM and other activist organizations are radical for wanting police off campuses. I think they meant it like this.
Radical! Radical! Radical party! Radical! Radical!
I'm so happy to announce that my mentor and one of my closest friends is here to help me kick off the show. Patrisse is joining us fresh off her international book tour for When They Call You a Terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Have you all seen Black Panther? I recently went out to the Rave Cinema in Baldwin Hills to hear people's reviews. Take a look and we'll be right back with Dignity and Power Now's founder and Black Lives Matter co-founder, Patrisse Cullors. So I'm here at the Rave Cinema on opening night at Black Panther.
Black Panther is the most socially profound Marvel movie that you will ever see.
I came in my African tribal makeup because I wanted to blend in with the kings and queens.
It was a great movie. Y'all gotta go see it. I'll buy your ticket to go see it.
I thought it was awesome. It had a lot of civil rights messages in the dialogue.
It was just extravagant and I loved every minute of it. They had an army of women and they were bad.
Wow.
Plus we were in the D-box seats, so the D-box seats just bounce you and boom. Oops, sorry about that.
Let's talk about this outfit. Well, you look amazing, so let's talk.
Thank you. You know, we look like sisters.
Oh, we do, right?
We have on the same.
We do.
We have on the same print, you know?
We do,
You're
yes.
the Red Panther, I'm the Pink.
You're, okay, there.
So this movie is empowering. The movie was absolutely wonderful.
I enjoyed every bit of it and it had a lot of good messages in there.
The meaning and all the symbolic messages that's in there, it's like, it just speaks on so many different levels.
This movie was very powerful, and I think that one of the strongest messages was addressing trauma, addressing childhood trauma in order for people to thrive.
Plus, like the emotional connection that you had to Killmonger, even though he's the villain.
I'm a comic book buff from way back, so I'm old school. So for us to see the Black Panther come out in a film now is really a good excitement for us.
I'm going to see it at least 6 more times.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about, 6 more times. So this movie was amazing. This is a Dignity and Power Now approved film, okay? So go and see the movie, take your friends, take your family, take your kids, go see this beautiful movie, go check out these beautiful Black people and enjoy yourselves. So welcome back. With me today, I have my friend, sister, and mentor, Patrisse Marie Cullors, who is the author of New York Times bestseller, When They Call You a Terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir. So here we are, my friend, sister, and mentor, Patrisse. Hi. So, Patrisse Cullors, I'm so happy that you're here. You're my sister, my friend, my mentor, like my family.
Thank you.
And I feel really honored to have you here today. And I'm
Thanks,
happy
babe.
that you're coming here to talk to us about your new book.
Yes.
Talk to me about this book. How you feeling? What's going on?
I'm happy. I'm grateful to be here too. And I've been waiting for this interview. I know I've been interviewed by lots of folks, but
Really?
this is the interview that feels like home to me. And
Yes.
I'm just really grateful to be here. And I love DPN with all my heart.
Thank you, and we love you too, of course. All right, well, I read your book. You know, it really opened my eyes to a lot of stuff that I went through as a child, and you know, it's very similar to what you went through. Yeah. And so I had a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you about the earlier years of your life, if you're okay with that.
Of course.
All right. Okay, so the first question I had was in chapter 1, you talked about the abuse your brothers endured at the hands of the police. And in your description, you talked about them being silenced by what happened to them, right? And you compared that silence to the silence of a rape victim, right? Because we know when people are abused, they just become silent. They don't talk about it. So I want you to unpack for the people at home a little bit exactly what does that mean to be numb to police brutality?
You know, part of the work of undoing the shame and the harm that has been caused against us in Black communities in particular, specifically by the police, is to talk about it, is to be honest about it, is to not allow them to silence us. And I think as a child, so much happened around me, so much happened to me and to my siblings that we just didn't talk about. We didn't talk about it. You know, one day we'd be hemmed up by the police. I'd be witnessing my siblings be hemmed up by the police. And right after that incident, it's like it never happened. And I think that this is part of what trauma does. It shrinks us, it shrinks our experience. And so I wanted to talk about it honestly and talk about how abuse and trauma does that to our communities.
I really appreciated that piece in particular because I know, you know, folks at home may know I do community outreach, but when I'm doing outreach, I've often said over the last 4 years that our communities are numb to what the police are doing to us, right? I was like, that is exactly what I've been talking about. And like, you hit it right on the nose.
Thank you, Jayda.
So the next question I have is around the term super predator. You talked about, and I quote, how law enforcement had nothing to do with protecting and serving, but controlling and containing the movement of children super predators, simply by virtue of who they were born to and where they were born, not because they were actually doing something predatory. So my question to you is, when you wrote that particular piece, how did you see that super predator term used in the last 5 years since Black Lives Matter has been coming into existence?
Yeah. The word predator really connotates a person who is purposefully trying to harm people, who is out there preying on people. And this term was used for young Black children. And so I really wanted to talk about what it meant to be marginalized, poor, to be living in a community that was largely Section 8 housing, and to honestly have very little power and yet be seen as the community to prey on. In fact, the super predators were the police.
Exactly.
They preyed on us.
Exactly.
And so unless you were Black and poor in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s before social media, we only knew what we went through. You know, we only know what our communities look like. Not a lot of folks knew that. In fact, they had a whole nother view of us.
Right. I like what you just said right now, where you said, you know, the super predator term was created mainly for Black men, right? But you added Black women. That's true. I remember when I was arrested and I was in court, I remember myself and my co-defendant being called menace to society, right? And I was like, I'm not a menace to society. Like, what are you talking about? But that's what they held on to in order to convict us, right? And I was just like, wow. And you know, I wish back then that I had all the knowledge that I have now, because I would have been like, no, who the hell are you talking to? You know, like, I'm not a menace to society, because I really wasn't. You know, I made a mistake. But I really like that. I really like that you talked about that in your book. Like, that term, we need to do more, have more conversations around what that means. So I appreciated that. Thanks, really, Jayda. 100. All right, next question. You ready?
Yeah.
I'm having so much fun with you right now. Okay. In the chapter titled Bloodline is when we learned that Alton wasn't your biological father and that Gabriel was. You talked a little bit about Alton and how he loved you and your siblings unconditionally, you know. But I want you to talk a little bit about Gabriel.
You know, Gabriel and Alton become two very important father figures in my life and joined my life at two different times. And I think with Gabriel, he is very different than Alton. You know, Gabriel's much more quiet, he's reserved, and he's has this energy, almost like a calming energy. Alton was very rambunctious, he was loud, he was fun.
Yeah, he was wild.
He was wild. Exactly, he was wild. And Gabriel, our relationship was so important. It took years to develop because he's this new person who I'm supposed to call dad. It took me a while to get there, you know, to call him dad. And I remember when I did start calling him dad, and I gave myself the permission and space, and he never pressured me to, you know, get to know me quickly. You know, he was very considerate and very kind and loving, and didn't deserve to die early. And I know that his death has everything to do with this place and the war on drugs and the way we relate to Black people when we're suffering. We criminalize Black suffering. Yep. And he deserved so much more care and dignity.
Yeah, I agree. So as the founder of Dignity and Power Now and one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, you have witnessed, heard, and told the stories of our people who are no longer here and who are stuck in cages.
Yeah.
And you have made it your duty to be the voice for those folks and to fight for our freedom. Even my freedom when I was inside, didn't even know. What is it that we can do in our communities to help create a culture of healing?
There's three things people could do. One, folks should be providing resources. If you got dollars, give them. But the other thing is folks physically show up. You know, like we have, I believe in creating organizations that are centered around healing. And so while we do have a health and wellness department, I think the whole organization is a healing organization. We have so many programs and campaigns people can get involved in and show up and be a part of. And then the last thing is have your own living room session. Like open up your home to your community and the people in your neighborhood and talk about the work.
I know when I was arrested, I know my family didn't really talk about it, you know, with other folks too. I know I talk about all the time how cages represent shame, embarrassment, torture, and all these terrible things, but it also represents that for the family, okay? Especially when you're a poor family. You're like, okay, you're already poor, and now you have a loved one who's in jail.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's like, how are people gonna look at me? How is my community gonna receive that? Okay, but what people don't know is that people will receive that. People want to support you. People want to know what it is that they can do to make this a little bit easier for you. Because as we all know, when I was in jail, my family was in jail too. When your brothers were in jail and being harassed, your family was in jail and being harassed too. Like, you know exactly what that feels like. So with everything that's happening and all the campaigns and programs that we're implementing and all the accountability structures that we're putting in place for people to be held accountable for the messed up stuff they do to us, how do you see Los Angeles County in the next 2-3 years?
I really believe that we're going to be able to stop this $3.5 billion jail. I feel it in my heart.
Yes.
And the ways that people looked at us like we were crazy when we said we're going to get civilian oversight, I think it's going to be the same way when these jails don't get built, and in fact that money goes into other places in the county. You know, I have a almost 2-year-old that I always think like whatever I do today will impact him in 20 years. You know, I don't want to see Shine in 20 years in one of them cages.
Exactly.
And so like it's part of my mission, I think, and our mission as a county to really change this. And the last thing I'll say on this is when LA does something, the rest of the country and the world does.
Right. We set the mold for a lot.
We set the mold.
We do.
So if we don't stop this, this is going to be set a precedent that folks across the country could continue to build billion-dollar jails.
There has to be a conversation around alternatives, right? And there's not enough conversation around alternatives or closing down these jails. There's a lot of talk on reform and all of these things, but that's not what we want, because all that does is it hurts our communities. You know, it hurts people who are poor and it hurts people of color. So I'm in this for the long run, and this is only the beginning. I'm happy that you were here sitting with me, talking to me today.
Thank you.
And yeah, this ain't it.
Yes.
This ain't it.
Thanks, Jayda.
Thank you. So as folks know, this is my first show. It's the premiere of Grassroots with Jayda. I thank you guys for tuning in, but subscribe to our Dignity and Power Now YouTube channel so that way you can see all of our episodes with all of the amazing guests that are to come. And yes, thank you for tuning in. Love y'all.